Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. On today's show, Peter Molyneux. What can I say that hasn't been said about this gentleman? Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you this. He is the king of overpromising and underdelivering. That's right. If you took Sean Murray from No Man's Sky and you paired him up with Tommy Tallarico, you would get him as far as overpromising. But what does that mean to you? What does that mean to me? From a business perspective, well, guys, it means a great conversation. And what I mean by that, well, let me take you throughout history. There's a lot of videos on this guy already where you can go through the weeds and try to find out what he said over the years. But let me start you off with this. This is an interview from Rock, Paper, Shotgun from back in the day. Do you think you're a pathological liar? That's the kind of reputation he had. Why do you have that? Well, guys, when he was, working with Microsoft and other big companies, he was overpromising and underdelivering on games like Fable, for example. He was famous for saying that, I think Fable 3 was it, that the game was going to have a moral engine of some sort. That also, I think in one of the games that he was promoting, that some of the NPCs would come back and get revenge for NPCs that you killed. Or in Fable, I think that he said that if a seed would fall on the ground and you come back later, a tree would be growing. That type of crap, right? But back in the day, guys, he was selling these games, and corporations care about sales, right? And when you have a good salesman, you don't hinder him, you don't stop him. If it's working, keep on selling. We'll ask for forgiveness later, right? Especially if sales are good. And, and he had enough cachet because of his prior work. If you look at his prior work, say, Populous that he worked on, Black and White, of course, Fable. Those are all great games that he worked on. And let me tell you, that really made for a lot of people wanting to cheer for him, right? Because, they were fans of his. And here's the article here, Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and this is back from 2015. Peter Molyneux interview. I haven't got a reputation in this industry anymore, right? And then I don't think I ever knowingly lied. This guy was dumb like a fox, as we say, right? When you look at this guy, he doesn't seem aggressive. He doesn't seem like the type of guy that would knowingly bullshit you. So, people kind of weren't hard on him back in the day. Not only that, he was working with big companies. So if you really went against him, there might be some consequences, right? Especially if you're a journalist. But after he goes on his own and he fails at a Kickstarter, right? And he makes all these promises, that's when he really started feeling the heat. But throughout his career, he had timing. He had timing, for example, in the NFT market. He sold a bunch of NFTs, right? And before you feel too sorry for this gentleman, he's reportedly worth about £6 million, give or take 2 million, depending on what he's been doing lately, right? And one of the reasons he started a Kickstarter, he said, it's so scary, right? To put your own money, to put all your own work here, and I wanted to be a team effort, yada, 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 right? Guys, this is one of the things that I want to debunk here, because many of these ventures they're started with venture capital money, and then on top of that, they look for the public's money, right? You've seen it in other places, but here's a good example where I can show you a breakdown of why that risk isn't so risky. So let's take a look at 22 Cans Ltd and this corporation set up in these shareholders, right? If you look at this breakdown over here, if you look at the quantity of shares, you see Peter Molyneux has the most amount of shares. But I want you to take a look at here, Image Frame Investments HK Limited. We could just do an episode on them. But let me just say they have the big bucks. They have the right connections with Tencent and, all that stuff. So they have money. But if you look at these shares, all the other shares haven't been exercised and they're not worth anything right now as of this snapshot right here. But their shares, the most important part, is that they actually have valuation. Not only that, they're different type of shares. They're ordinary A, right? When you set up a corporation, right, the type of shares that you have are actually meaningful. because typically, not saying that's the case here, right? But typically, ordinary shares type A or preferred shares, there's other names for them, have greater voting rights. What does that mean? Since they're putting up the money, they get to say what happens in the company, right? These other people here are basically working on commission. If the company grows and the value of the company grows, then they're able to exercise their shares, sell them, and they make even more money. Not that they're not taking a salary. So what happens in this case? Well, ImageFrame can say, hey, we don't want this person here. We want to change this position, that position. You know, you could see it. You know, this is one of the hypotheses, for example, people have in the television, that Sudesh and what's the other guy's name? Perry. I can't remember off the top of my head. They're thinking that, you know, they're the majority shareholders. They have preferred shares, and they're able to remove and impose whoever they want as CEO. That's a theory, right? Could be, right? But many ventures are set up like this. So when Peter Molyneux is saying, you know, I'm scared of putting all this up. No, not really. They're putting the money up, right? You're having money that you could risk in the future because you're basically working on commission, but you're not really risking all that much. Now, when does he eventually fail? When he puts his hand out, right? When he has his own studio. Now, again, when it comes to the timing, when he did that mystery cube, you guys can go look it up. He had this contest on this cube where people are just pecking away at this cube. And if you got to the center, whoever got to the center got this life-changing prize, according to him. Well, eventually they got to the center, and as of yet, the winner's life has not been changed, right? And then he had his failed Kickstarter, which never amounted to anything. He put his hand out, and now he can't rely on studios to fix his mistakes, right? He can't rely on Microsoft or anybody else to come back and clean up the mess. It's just him. That's how we ended up at, do you think you're a pathological liar, right? Because all that credit from before that he had occurred by great games and from having the backing of major studios is all gone. Now it's just him, right? And there's a lot of these tales where you have great salesmen, great talent, but they don't have the infrastructure to do what they want to do, and they eventually fail. But you know what? If you got 6 million to 4 million, give or take 2 million, do you feel that bad for them? In the end, they always get the money. All right, guys, thank you for joining me. If you enjoy this kind of content, hey, like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about Peter. What do you think was his best line? I don't know. I kind of like that whole seat falls to the ground and there's going to be a tree growing there when you come back. Guys, I will catch you on the next one. Take care.